Imagine a creature swimming toward you out of just this pitch black void. Like its face is basically completely dominated by teeth that are so monstrously disproportionate, so jagged and impossibly long, that if it were to simply close its mouth like a normal animal, it would literally drive those fangs straight upward, like piercing the roof of its own mouth and instantly impaling its own brain.
Right.
It's just an image of pure biological horror.
It really is.
Welcome to today's deep dive. You're descending with us today into a realm where survival just absolutely defies logic.
It truly is this evolutionary paradox wrapped in a nightmare, honestly. Because when you look at the face of the fangtooth fish or, an Aplogaster cornuta, you aren't just looking at a scary face. You're looking at one of the most extreme, highly calculated and perfectly engineered solutions to basically the most inhospitable environment on planet Earth.
Exactly. Because we aren't talking about, the sunlit coral-filled ocean you see on nature documentaries here. We are taking you down into the midnight zone.
Yeah.
The bathypelagic layer.
Yeah, thousands of meters beneath the waves.
Absolute, just void-like darkness.
Yes.
Freezing temperatures. And a hydrostatic pressure so violent that if you dropped a standard automobile down there, it would be instantly crushed into a cube of scrap metal.
Literally crushed.
Yeah. So to live there, you can't just be tough. You have to hack the very laws of physics and chemistry.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack how this creature survives and, actually thrives using this crazy anatomical architecture, biochemical armor, and these sensory superpowers that sound like they belong on an alien world, not our own.
Okay, let's unpack the anatomy first.
Right.
Because we have to address the elephant, or rather the ogrefish in the room. They actually call this thing the ogrefish, or the common saber-tooth.
Yeah, those are the common names.
And with a moniker like that and a face that looks like a literal medieval torture device, my immediate assumption is that this thing is like the size of a great white shark.
Yeah.
I'm picturing this massive beast just prowling the depths and swallowing submarines.
And that is perhaps the greatest irony of the fangtooth.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When you see those terrifying macro photographs circulating online, they deliberately obscure the scale. In reality, they are incredibly small.
Wait, how small?
A fully grown adult fangtooth maxes out at about 16 to 18 centimeters in length.
Wait, 16 centimeters? That is what, maybe 6 or 7 inches?
Yep. Roughly the length of a human hand.
I mean, if you were to hold one in the palm of your hand, it wouldn't even hang over the edges.
Which, to be clear, I strongly advise against doing.
Yeah, fair enough. No petting the nightmare fish.
Right. But they are these compact, tiny little balls of muscle and ferocity. And within that tiny frame, they actually hold a major, staggering oceanic record.
Oh, the teeth.
Yes. They possess the largest teeth in the ocean relative to their body size.
Just to put that in perspective for you, some of these lower fangs reach over 7 centimeters long on a 16-centimeter fish.
Exact.
If we scaled that up to human proportions, that would be like a person walking around with bottom teeth the length of baseball bats just protruding from their jaw.
It's a deeply unsettling image, I know, but mathematically accurate. And, having teeth that long presents a massive anatomical crisis.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
As you mentioned right at the start, the two largest fangs on the lower jaw point directly upward, and the brain case sits right above the roof of the mouth. So if Fangtooth just snapped its jaw shut in a panic, it would give itself a lethal lobotomy.
Which raises a massive question about natural selection, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does evolution let that slide?
Right.
I mean, if I have a weapon that kills me the second I put it away, that is a catastrophic design flaw.
Yeah.
Why not just evolve teeth that curve outward like a wild boar's tusks? Why risk the brain?
Well, because curving outward would defeat the entire purpose of the teeth. You have to remember, evolution is an inventive, albeit totally ruthless, problem solver. Okay. So to avoid piercing the brain while keeping the teeth perfectly vertical, the fangtooth has evolved a highly specialized architectural feature right in its skull. It has a pair of opposing sockets, these deep, basically transparent sheaths or pockets carved directly into the roof of its mouth.
Oh, wait.
Right on either side of the brain.
So it literally has custom holsters built into its skull.
Precisely. Custom holsters. When the jaw snaps shut, those massive lower fangs slide perfectly into these holsters. They pass just millimeters away from the most vital neurological tissues.
Wow.
It is an engineering marvel of micromillimeter precision.
It's like trying to force closed a hard-shell suitcase that is just way overpacked with golf clubs. Like eventually, you literally have to carve holes in the lid just to shut the thing without snapping the clubs.
That's a great way to picture it, yeah.
But speaking of snapping, what are these teeth actually made of? I assume they have to be as dense as diamonds to survive down there.
So the material science of the teeth is actually fascinating. They totally lack the typical calcium phosphate layer that you see in the teeth of most other fish, or even in, our own teeth.
Well, really? Why?
Because down in the bathypelagic zone, building materials like calcium are biologically expensive. It takes immense metabolic energy to extract and maintain calcium in really deep, cold water. So instead, the teeth are constructed from densely packed nanocrystals.
Oh, wow.
And because of that, they're entirely transparent.
Transparent teeth, like glass needles? That's horrifying. But if they don't have that standard calcium phosphate armor, are they brittle?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about sharks here.
The conveyor belt of teeth.
Yeah. Sharks are the ultimate oceanic biters, but they treat their teeth like disposable razors. They lose thousands of them. Does the fangtooth have rows of replacement baseball bat teeth just waiting in the wings?
It absolutely does not. And this is where the evolutionary stakes become incredibly high. The fangtooth's teeth are permanently fused to the jawbone. There is absolutely no tooth replacement system.
Wait, what? But if it relies entirely on these massive fangs to survive, and it accidentally snaps one on a piece of bone, is it just out of luck for the rest of its life?
Pretty much, yeah. It is an all-or-nothing evolutionary gamble. A broken tooth could very well mean a slow death by starvation.
That seems insanely risky.
It is, but to understand why the fish takes that risk, you really have to understand the economy of the deep ocean. The abyssal depths are a desert. Food is catastrophically scarce. Like, a fangtooth might hover in the freezing dark for days or weeks, maybe even a month, without encountering a single viable piece of prey.
So when a meal finally drifts by, there are no second chances. There is no open water pursuit. Like, there's no chasing it down if you miss the first bite.
Right. The strike has to be absolute. And that is exactly why the teeth cannot curve outward like a boar's tusks. The teeth aren't meant for chewing at all.
Right. They form a literal cage.
Exactly. Once the jaw snaps shut around a squid or a smaller fish, those interlocking vertical fangs create a prison of bone. The prey cannot wriggle free.
So it's not a chewing mechanism. It's an iron maiden. It's a bear trap.
Yes, they actually swallow their prey completely whole. So the extreme risk of breaking an irreplaceable tooth is outweighed by the absolute necessity of never, ever letting a hard-won meal escape the cage.
Okay, my mind is reeling at the idea of this tiny 6-inch fish with transparent baseball bat teeth holstering into its own brain. Like it just swims around with a permanent bear trap for a mouth.
Pretty much.
But this brings up a massive logistical problem.
Yeah.
If you are born into this harsh environment, how do you survive as a baby with these massive teeth? Do they hatch looking like this?
They absolutely do not. And honestly, the difference between the baby and the adult led to one of the most remarkable and frankly kind of embarrassing cases of mistaken identity in the history of marine biology.
Oh, I love a good scientific blunder. Walk us through it.
Okay, so to set the stage, the fangtooth is what taxonomists call a loner. It belongs to the family Anoplogastridae within the order Trachyphthiiformes. Basically, it sits on a totally isolated, ancient evolutionary branch. It has no close living relatives.
Okay, so no cousins to compare it to.
Right. And because of this isolation, early scientists didn't have much biological context for its life cycle. Now, picture marine biologists in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
Right.
They would occasionally cast nets into the shallower ocean layers, the sunlit zones, and they'd pull up these strange, tiny, light gray fish.
Okay, light gray. What else do they look like?
Well, they had relatively large eyes, which are perfectly adapted for the dim sunlight. They had a functional gas bladder to help them maintain buoyancy near the surface, and they had these long, elaborate, almost decorative spines sticking out of their heads, likely to deter surface predators.
Okay.
And crucially, they had tiny, completely normal, depressible little teeth.
They sound kind of cute, actually, like a little spiky gray goldfish. Basically nothing like the nightmare we just described.
Oh, they were entirely unintimidating. So scientists studied this little fish and named it Cololepis. They classified it as a completely distinct genus, like it had its own entry in the textbooks. Meanwhile, Completely separately, deep-sea expeditions were dredging the abyssal trenches and pulling up the terrifying, black-scaled, massive fanged Anoplogaster cornuta, the fangtooth.
So they had the cute, spiky gray fish from the surface and the black, brain-fanged monster from the abyss.
Exactly. And for over 100 years, the scientific community wrote papers, debated classifications, and treated these two fish as entirely different animals from completely different evolutionary neighborhoods.
How is that even possible? I mean, how do you study an animal for a century and not realize that the surface fish and the deep-sea monster are the exact same species?
I know, it sounds crazy now.
That is like a biologist observing a caterpillar and then observing a butterfly and concluding they're completely unrelated because they never happened to see a cocoon.
That is a really fair analogy, but, we have to grant those early researchers some grace here. Deep-sea research, especially a century ago, was agonizingly difficult. You can't just set up a camera in the bathypelagic zone and watch a fish grow up. When you pull an animal up from those depths, you are getting a single, frozen, often damaged snapshot in time. You never see the transition.
Right, they just get a dead fish in a net.
Exactly. It wasn't until 1955 that researchers finally pieced the anatomical and geographic puzzle together and realized that the cute little Caulolepis was, in fact, just the juvenile teenage stage of the monstrous fangtooth.
What a dramatic puberty. Like, to go from a gray, spiky surface dweller to the black-scaled terror of the deep. How does that transition actually happen physically?
So the scientific term for this biological journey is ontogenetic descent, and it is a harrowing transformation. The fangtooth starts its life in the epipelagic zone, the warm, sunlit layer from the surface down to about 200 meters.
Okay, so normal ocean stuff.
Right. Up there, a giant bear trap mouth is completely useless. The juvenile uses long gill rakers, these comb-like structures, to filter feed on microscopic zooplankton, specifically these tiny, alien-looking crustaceans called hypereid amphipods.
It's a gentle, grazing, floating lifestyle, almost like a baleen whale, but the size of a minnow.
Yes. But as the fish ages over the course of 1 to 2 years, this genetic timer just goes off, and the fish begins a slow, inexorable descent into the darkness.
Wow.
And as it sinks, its body undergoes a radical, almost violent morphing process.
Violent how?
Well, those elaborate defensive head spines, the body literally resorbs them. They melt back into the skull. The functional gas bladder, which was keeping it afloat, it completely deflates and is reabsorbed, committing the fish to a life of heavy, neutral buoyancy in the deep.
Oh man, it's burning its bridges to the surface. It can literally never go back up.
Never. Its skin drastically shifts from that light reflective gray to an ultra-black pigment. And most dramatically, the tiny normal teeth fall out, and those massive immovable fangs begin to erupt from its jaw alongside the development of those cranial holsters.
It is literally sinking into the abyss and physically transforming into a monster to match the darkness. That is so incredibly cinematic.
It really is.
But wait, this brings up a terrifying physical reality. As it leaves the comfortable surface waters and heads down into the bathypelagic zone, the environment turns hostile. We mentioned the pressure earlier.
Yes.
If this fish is sinking thousands of meters, the weight of the water column above it is increasing exponentially. How does it not just get crushed?
This is one of the most compelling mysteries of deep-sea biology, and it really requires us to step away from anatomy and dive into sheer physics for a minute.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's quantify what that sinking fish is experiencing. The adult fangtooth generally settles in a habitat between 500 and 2,000 meters down, but they have been reliably documented at depths up to 5,000 meters.
Wait, 5,000 meters? That is over 16,000 feet deep. 3 miles straight down.
Yes. And at 3 miles down, the hydrostatic pressure is up to 1.1 kilobars. To put that in perspective for you, that is a 1,100-fold increase from the atmospheric pressure we experience standing on the beach at sea level.
That's insane.
It equates to roughly 8 tons of pressure per square inch of surface area.
8 tons per square inch. I'm trying to visualize that. That's like balancing a fully grown African elephant on a literal postage stamp.
Pretty much.
And we have to build deep-sea submersibles out of inches thick titanium spheres just to keep from imploding. But the fangtooth doesn't have a titanium shell. It's made of meat. It's flesh, blood, and delicate cells. How does biological flesh survive a physics environment that crushes solid metal?
Well, the secret doesn't lie in mechanical armor. It actually lies in microscopic cellular biochemistry. A few years ago, there was this groundbreaking study conducted by researchers at the University of Leeds, led by Dr. Harrison Laurent and Professor Lorna Dugan. They didn't just look at the fish. They look at how water itself behaves under extreme pressure.
Ah, because fish and humans and basically all terrestrial life are mostly made of water. So whatever happens to the water happens to the fish.
Exactly. Under normal surface-level atmospheric pressure, water molecules bind to one another in a very specific, roughly tetrahedron-like geometric network. It's stable, it's predictable, and it provides the perfect environment for complex proteins to fold and function.
Okay.
But when you subject water to the kind of pressure found at 5,000 meters, that geometric network physically distorts.
Oh, the actual shape of the water changes.
Yes. The intense pressure forces the hydrogen bonds between the water molecules to bend, compress, and warp.
And if that water is inside the cells of a living organism, that distortion is happening inside the animal's biology.
With catastrophic results. When the water network inside a living cell collapses and distorts, the vital proteins suspended in that water can no longer fold correctly. Biochemical signaling basically just grinds to a halt.
Yeah.
The cellular machinery jams, the cell membrane ruptures, and the organism dies almost instantaneously. This is why a surface fish dragged to the bottom of the ocean would literally turn to jelly.
So the pressure isn't just squishing the fish from the outside, it's chemically collapsing the fish from the inside.
Yes.
So how does the fangtooth stop the water inside its own body from collapsing its proteins?
By utilizing a remarkable chemical called TMAO, which stands for trimethylamine N oxide.
TMAO, what exactly is it?
It is what biologists call an osmolyte, which is a very small organic molecule. The fangtooth cells are capable of synthesizing and accumulating TMAO in massive, massive quantities.
I see.
The researchers at the University of Leeds wanted to see exactly how it worked, so they set up this incredible experiment. They fired a highly focused beam of neutrons at water samples that were placed under extreme deep sea levels of pressure.
Wait, firing neutrons at pressurized water? That is some serious supervillain science right there. What did they see?
They observed that in pure water, the tetrahedral network collapsed under the pressure, just as physics dictates. But when they introduced TMAO to the water sample and applied the exact same crushing pressure, the water network remained completely stable.
Really? Just from adding that molecule?
Yep. The TMAO acted as a chemical structural anchor. The molecules of TMAO essentially wrap themselves around the water molecules, reinforcing and strengthening those fragile hydrogen bonds and physically preventing them from bending or distorting under the weight.
Okay, let me see if I can translate this into a visual for us.
Go for it.
Let's imagine the water inside a single normal biological cell is like a flimsy cardboard box. If you stack 8 tons of weight on top of that box, the walls buckle and it flattens instantly. But what the fangtooth is doing by pumping its cells full of TMAO is it's like erecting microscopic steel scaffolding inside the cardboard box. The TMAO holds the walls up from the inside out, so the box keeps its shape perfectly no matter how much external weight you drop on it.
That is a phenomenal, highly accurate analogy. Yes, TMAO is biological steel scaffolding. It is so remarkably effective that biologists don't even have to guess how deep a fish lives anymore.
What are you gonna?
They calculate what is called an osmolyte protection ratio. By simply analyzing a tissue sample and measuring the exact concentration of TMAO in a fish's body, they can mathematically predict the maximum depth that specific fish is capable of surviving.
It's a direct mathematical formula. More depth equals more scaffolding required.
Precisely. The deeper the habitat, the higher the concentration of TMAO required to keep the cellular walls from caving in. The fangtooth has absolutely mastered this chemistry. Its armor is basically dissolved into its very bloodstream.
That is staggering. It hacks the chemistry of water just to exist.
But surviving the physics of the deep ocean doesn't mean you survive the biology, right?
Right.
It solves the pressure problem, but the fangtooth is still a tiny, slow-moving meatball floating in a zone shared by massive, hungry predators. How does it hide when there is literally nowhere to hide? There's no kelp forests down there, no coral reefs, just open, black water.
Right. And to understand its camouflage, we first have to correct a common misconception about the deep ocean. We often call it the pitch black void, but it isn't completely devoid of light.
It's not.
No, it is devoid of sunlight. But the bathypelagic zone is actually this chaotic, constantly flashing light show.
Oh, bioluminescence.
Yes, chemical light produced by living organisms. It is estimated that up to 90% of deep-sea marine life produces bioluminescence.
90%.
Jellyfish, squids, predatory fish, They are all emitting flashes of blue and green light to communicate, to lure prey, or, to startle attackers. Imagine floating in a massive dark warehouse filled with thousands of random strobe lights going off unpredictably. And if you are a little 6-inch fangtooth floating in the dark and a bioluminescent squid sets off a strobe light right behind you, suddenly your silhouette is perfectly backlit.
Exactly.
You become a glowing, highly visible target for every apex predator in the neighborhood, like the marlins, the albacore tuna, the giant long-nosed lancet fish.
Yep. In the deep sea, a silhouette is a death sentence. If even a single photon of stray light reflects off your scales, you are visible and you will be eaten.
Yikes.
So to combat this, the fangtooth has evolved a biological stealth cloak. It is officially recognized as one of only 16 known ultra-black species of fish on planet Earth.
Ultra-black. I've heard that term used for Vantablack, that synthetic, high-tech paint they use on satellites that absorbs so much light it looks like a literal hole cut out of reality.
It is the exact biological equivalent of Vantablack. A massive 2020 study spearheaded by marine biologist Karen Osborne at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History took a microscopic look at the skin of these ultra-black deep-sea fishes.
Okay, what did they find?
They discovered that the fangtooth skin absorbs an astonishing 99.5% of all incident light. When researchers on surface vessels pull these fish up and try to photograph them with bright, high-powered camera flashes, the resulting pictures often just look like flat, empty voids in the shape of a fish.
That's incredible.
The camera sensors just can't capture any surface detail because absolutely no light is bouncing back into the lens.
It eats the camera flash. But how does biological skin do that? Is it just an incredibly dense concentration of dark pigment? Because, I can wear a black t-shirt and you can still see the wrinkles in it.
It's much more than just throwing a lot of melanin at the problem. It is a masterpiece of structural optical engineering.
Okay.
The skin is packed with highly specialized, elongated cells called melanosomes, which of course house the pigment melanin. But the secret really lies in their geometry.
Geometry.
Yeah. These melanosomes are densely packed into a continuous, interlocking, almost labyrinthine layer right at the very surface of the skin.
So it's about the shape and arrangement, not just the color.
Correct. When a photon of stray bioluminescent light hits the skin of a normal fish, it bounces off. But when a photon hits the fangtooth, it enters this microscopic maze of melanosomes. Instead of bouncing back out, the photon gets trapped.
Wow.
It ricochets laterally inside the skin layer, bouncing from melanosome to melanosome, losing energy with each impact until it is completely 100% absorbed.
It's an optical roach motel. Light checks in, but it doesn't check out. It absorbs the radar, so to speak, so nothing bounces back to the predator's eye.
It is perfect stealth technology. By absorbing 99.5% of light, the fangtooth becomes effectively invisible. It is a ghost floating in a graveyard of ghosts.
I love the ghost hunting ghosts idea. But wait, this brings up a massive, glaring sensory paradox.
Oh.
Let's think about this logically. The ocean is unimaginably vast. It's essentially pitch black. The fangtooth is invisible to everyone else. The prey is invisible or only flashing sporadically. And as we noted in the anatomy section, the fangtooth has tiny, highly reduced eyes that are basically useless for acute hunting. So, how does it actually find its food? It can't just swim around aimlessly in a 3-mile deep void with its mouth open, hoping a squid accidentally swims into the bear trap. If the math on that doesn't work, it would starve.
You've just articulated the central problem of deep sea ecology, actually. How do you map a world that you cannot see?
Right.
The fangtooth has solved this by entirely abandoning vision as its primary hunting sense.
Really?
Instead, it relies on two incredibly refined, non-visual sensory arrays. The first, and most important, is its highly hyper-developed lateral line system.
Oh, the lateral line. I know most surface fish have that. It's that faint horizontal stripe you see running down the side of a trout or a salmon.
Yes, but comparing a trout's lateral line to a fangtooth's is like comparing a magnifying glass to the James Webb Space Telescope.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In the fangtooth, the lateral line is a prominent, deep groove running along both flanks of its body from head to tail. Inside this groove are thousands of tiny, highly specialized sense organs called neuromasts.
Okay, neuromasts.
And these neuromasts are suspended in a thick, specialized mucus goo that fills the entire length of the groove. And protruding from these neuromasts, extending out into the water column, are microscopic, ultra-sensitive hairs.
So it's basically covered head to toe in microscopic, mucus-coated antennae.
Exactly. And these antennae are sensitive to a degree that is difficult for a human brain to really comprehend. They don't detect light. They detect the absolute faintest pressure waves and low-frequency vibrations in the water column.
So feeling the water.
Yes. If a shrimp flicks its tail several feet away in the absolute dark, it sends a microscopic ripple of displaced water pressure outward. The hairs in the fangtooth's lateral line bend ever so slightly. The neuromasts fire, calculate the exact intensity and timing of the ripple across the length of the fish's body, and provide the brain with an exact, real-time directional vector.
That is wild. It's like a spider sitting dead center on a massive web in a pitch-black room. Like, the spider can't see the fly, but the absolute millisecond the fly touches the strand of silk, the vibrations travel up the web and tell the spider exactly which direction and how far to strike.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. But remember, the fangtooth is doing it in a three-dimensional, fluid environment.
Oh.
It builds a real-time, 3D topographical map of its surroundings using nothing but the pressure of displaced water.
Incredible.
But the sensory arsenal doesn't stop there. It also heavily utilizes contact chemoreception.
Chemoreception, so tasting and smelling the water itself.
Yes, there were some absolutely fascinating and frankly very difficult experiments conducted in 1973 by scientists Childress and Meek. They somehow managed the monumental task of bringing live fangtooths up to the surface without killing them, and they observed them in dark, chilled tanks.
What did they do?
They took a dead, motionless shrimp, so there's no vibrations for the lateral line to pick up, and they simply, gently brushed it against the tail of the fangtooth. Instantly, the fish whipped around, orienting itself perfectly toward the shrimp. When they brushed it near the facial area, the fish attacked with blinding, ferocious speed. It literally tastes the chemical trails left in the water.
Wow.
Often in the absolute dark, it hunts simply by bumping into things and instantaneously tasting what it just collided with.
Bump, taste, strike. That is terrifyingly efficient, but it still requires the prey to actually come near it. I mean, if it's just floating there waiting to taste or feel something, how does it get enough calories?
Well, it's tough.
Because if you live in a desert, you can't just stand still and wait for a sandwich to walk by. Don't they have to go looking for food eventually?
That is the eternal biological trade-off: energy conservation versus energy expenditure. Because food is so scarce, swimming aggressively around the bathypelagic zone would burn significantly more calories than the fish could ever hope to gain from randomly finding a meal.
That makes sense. So,
it conserves energy to an extreme degree. It achieves perfect neutral buoyancy, meaning it neither sinks nor floats, by possessing low-density, highly watery tissues instead of a heavy gas bladder. It just hangs perfectly still in the void, a silent, invisible assassin waiting for a vibration.
Just lurking.
However, to address your point about starvation, they do commute.
Commute like they leave the deep zone.
Yes. They perform what biologists call diel vertical migrations. While the bathypelagic zone is an empty desert, the shallower waters hundreds of meters above are actually teeming with life at night.
Oh, I see.
When the sun goes down, the zooplankton rise to the surface to eat algae. The small fish rise to eat the zooplankton, and the fangtooth rises from the abyss to eat the small fish.
It rides an oceanic conveyor belt of calories. It swims up thousands of feet every single night and then retreats back down to the abyssal depths before dawn to hide from the daytime predators.
Exactly. The massive expenditure of energy required for that vertical commute is vastly outweighed by the sheer density of prey available in the upper layers under the cover of night.
God.
And when it finally strikes in the dark, it doesn't mess around with small bites. Remember those giant brain-holstering jaws? Because meals are so infrequent, the fangtooth has evolved the ability to swallow prey up to 1/3 of its own entire body length.
1/3. I mean, if a human did that, it would be the equivalent of unhinging your jaw and swallowing a golden retriever completely whole.
Yeah.
Which sounds biologically impossible, mostly because how do you breathe while swallowing something that massive?
You've identified a massive physiological bottleneck there. A fish breathes by opening its mouth, letting oxygenated water flow in, and passing that water backward over its gills.
Right.
So when a fangtooth swallows a fish that is a third of its size, that massive prey completely blocks the entire oral cavity. Water can no longer flow in through the mouth.
Uh-oh.
Essentially, a fish eating a massive meal runs the very real risk of suffocating itself while it slowly swallows.
So how does the fangtooth not choke to death on a giant squid while it's locked in the bear trap?
It employs a bizarre, ingenious physiological trick called reverse direction ventilation.
Reverse direction ventilation.
Yes. As the prey is wedged in its throat, slowly being swallowed, the fangtooth takes its small pectoral fins and begins to vigorously fan water forward from the back of its gill covers.
No way.
It actively pushes oxygenated water over his gills from the opposite direction. It essentially breathes in reverse while its mouth is completely plugged.
That is unbelievable. It's like installing a backup fan in your car's engine specifically, so it doesn't overheat while you're driving up a steep mountain. This tiny fish literally has a mechanical, chemical, or sensory workaround for every single obstacle the ocean throws at it.
It really does. But, the fangtooth isn't the only master of the deep. If we pull back and look at the wider bathypelagic ecosystem, it shares this pitch-black space with other apex predators.
Right.
And comparing them reveals how evolution can solve the exact same problem of survival in completely different, highly creative ways. Let's look at the fangtooth's main rival in the deep-sea nightmare department, the dragonfish.
Oh, the dragonfish. Just the name sounds like trouble. How do they stack up against each other? Like if we were to stage a deep-sea heavyweight championship, fangtooth versus dragonfish, what are the stats? What is the tail of the tape?
Well, they share some foundational evolutionary traits. Both are relatively small. Both possess those incredible light-scattering, transparent teeth we discussed.
Okay.
Both have massive jaws designed to trap, and both have evolved that ultra-black, photon-absorbing stealth skin to hide in the dark.
So they're somewhat similar.
On the surface, yes. But their hunting strategies diverge wildly from there. The dragonfish relies heavily on what we might call biological gadgets.
Gadgets. So the dragonfish is the James Bond of the abyss.
In a very real way, yes. While the fangtooth abandoned vision entirely to rely on feeling water vibrations, the dragonfish embraced vision. It possesses a massive technological advantage over the fangtooth, weaponized bioluminescence.
Oh, so it glows.
But it doesn't just emit regular blue or green light like a jellyfish. A specific genus of dragonfish has evolved the ability to emit and see red light.
Red light. Why is red light such a game changer?
It comes down to the physics of water. In the ocean, the red wavelength of the light spectrum is filtered out by the water very, very close to the surface. It simply doesn't penetrate deep water.
Right, because everything looks blue down there.
Exactly. And because of this, over millions of years, almost no deep-sea creatures possess the specific visual retinal pigments necessary to even perceive the color red.
Wait, really?
To the vast majority of deep-sea life, including the fangtooth, red light doesn't exist. It just registers as more darkness. But the dragonfish produces a highly concentrated red beam from a specialized organ situated directly beneath its eye.
Wow.
And crucially, it has evolved the specific retinal pigments required to see its own red light.
Oh my God. It has built-in night vision goggles. It is literally shining an invisible flashlight on its prey.
Yes.
It can sweep the darkness, illuminate a target, and the target is completely blind to the beam. That is the ultimate sniper scope.
It is an overwhelming sensory advantage. And the gadgets don't stop with the sniper scope either. The dragonfish also has an incredibly specialized skull architecture.
More gadgets.
Yeah. When it strikes, a hyperflexible joint at the base of its skull allows its jaws to completely dislocate and hinge open, extending outward and upward, somewhat akin to a Pez dispenser.
A Pez dispenser. That's a horrifying image.
This mechanical extension allows it to swallow prey even larger than the fangtooth can manage.
Okay, so the dragonfish has invisible night vision sniper scopes and a dislocating Pez dispenser mouth. It sounds incredibly overpowered. In a hypothetical one-on-one fight in the dark, does the fangtooth just lose this matchup every single time? What is its counter strategy to that level of tech?
Well, if the dragonfish is the high-tech, gadget-reliant assassin, the fangtooth is the brute force brawler.
Okay.
It doesn't have light organs. It can't unhinge its skull to that extreme degree. But what it lacks in high-tech gadgets, it makes up for in pure, unadulterated brawn.
Brawn. And a 6-inch fish.
Oh, absolutely. The fangtooth has a much more robust, muscular build. It possesses thick armor plating along its body in the form of deep, spiny scales, and it has a notoriously aggressive, feisty temperament.
Feisty, huh?
Yeah. When research vessels have brought both species up in trawls, the dragonfish are often delicate and easily damaged, while the fangtooths actively snap, thrash, and bite at whatever comes near them. They display immense muscular power for their size.
So it's Batman versus Superman, like the tech-reliant stealth hunter against the muscular, heavily armored brawler. But in the pitch black, I mean, the dragonfish can see the fangtooth coming with that red light, even if the fangtooth is ultra black. The red light will eventually catch a reflection off a tooth or an eye, right?
On paper, a strict one-on-one matchup might favor the dragonfish's visual advantage. The sniper usually beats the brawler if they see them first, but...
Okay.
And this is a massive caveat that biologists are still struggling to understand. There is a twist in the oceanic data that could completely upend our entire assumption about how the fangtooth operates.
A twist. Here's where it gets really interesting. What kind of twist?
When research vessels pull up their massive trawl nets from the bathycologic zone, they log everything they catch to study population densities, right?
Right.
And occasionally they find something highly unusual regarding the fangtooth. They don't just pull up a single solitary fish. They have repeatedly pulled up nets containing entire shoals of them.
Shoals.
Groups of adult fangtooths of varying sizes and ages, all captured together in the exact same localized area of the deep ocean.
Wait. Are you saying the solitary ambush predator brawler might actually be hanging out in groups?
We cannot say for absolute certain, as direct long-term observation in the deep sea is incredibly difficult and rare, as we know. But the net data strongly suggests they congregate. And if they congregate, it raises a truly terrifying speculation among marine biologists. They might hunt in packs.
Pack hunting, like deep-sea wolves. I am imagining a whole pack of these invisible, brain-fanged, heavily armored fish working in concert to corral a school of squid. But wait, if there are pack hunters, that requires immense coordination. Yes, it does.
And we just established they are basically blind, and they don't have bioluminescent light organs to flash signals at each other like fireflies. How on earth would a pack of invisible fish communicate a flank attack in the pitch black without making a sound or shining a light? Just through water vibrations.
That is the exact question that keeps deep-sea behavioral ecologists awake at night. If they are indeed hunting cooperatively, they would have to be communicating through their lateral lines.
Oh, wow.
They would be making incredibly subtle, deliberate movements, twitches of a fin, sweeps of a tail, sending highly specific coded pressure waves through the water to one of those neuromasts. I'm moving left, you move right, strike now.
It would be like a SWAT team operating in a smoke-filled room wearing blindfolds and coordinating a breach using only hand signals. Except the hand signals are invisible ripples in the air.
Precisely. If true, it would require a level of rapid neurological processing and complex social intelligence that we have simply never attributed to a deep-sea fish like this.
It changes everything. It would completely revolutionize our understanding of social behavior in the abyss. It proves that the deeper we look, the more complex the dark becomes.
It makes you realize how little we actually know about what is happening on our own planet.
Yeah.
Like, we are theorizing about invisible SWAT teams of brain-fanged fish because we literally can't see them.
It really highlights that the deep ocean is truly Earth's final great frontier. I mean, we have vastly better, more detailed topographical maps of the surface of Mars than we do of our own abyssal plains.
That's wild.
Every single time we send a ROV down or drag a research net up, we are just pulling back a tiny microscopic corner of the curtain on an ancient ecosystem that has been operating flawlessly in the dark for millions of years.
It is profoundly humbling. So let's pull all of this together. We've spent this time exploring a tiny fish that, at first glance, just looks like a grotesque, scary monster from a horror movie. We talked about how its teeth are so massive, so uncompromising, that evolution had to build structural pockets in its own brain case just so it could close its mouth. We talked about its bizarre life cycle, how it starts as a cute, spiky gray filter feeder basking in the sun before a genetic timer sends it slowly sinking into the abyss, transforming it into a black-scaled nightmare.
And we've looked at the sheer uncompromising engineering of its existence, too. The ultra-black skin with its labyrinth of melanosomes that traps 99.5% of light, turning it into a literal ghost
Yeah.
The lateral line system that lets it feel the heartbeat of the ocean and map a pitch-black world in 3D. The reverse ventilation that lets it breathe backwards while swallowing meals half its size.
And maybe the most mind-blowing aspect to me, the molecular scaffolding. The TMAO chemical that acts as internal steel, propping up the fragile water molecules inside its cells so its proteins don't get crushed into jelly by 8 tons of pressure per square inch.
Yeah, that's huge.
This fish isn't just a freak show exhibit meant to scare us. It's a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. It shows us that biological life doesn't just stubbornly endure extreme hardship. It actively innovates. It hacks the laws of physics and chemistry to find a way to thrive in the void.
And, that biological innovation has implications that reach far beyond the cold bottom of the ocean. Which brings us to a final, rather profound thought regarding why we study these creatures in the first place.
Oh, I'm ready. Lay it on me. Why does the fangtooth matter to us up here in the sun?
Well, we spent a significant amount of time discussing TMAO, that biological antifreeze, the chemical scaffolding that prevents the fangtooth's delicate proteins from distorting, collapsing, and misfolding under immense physical and hydrostatic stress.
Right, the microscopic steel scaffolding holding up the cardboard box from the inside.
Exactly. Well, let's pivot and think about human medicine for a moment.
Okay.
What are some of the absolute greatest challenges we face in modern healthcare? When we harvest human organs for transplant, we have a very short window. We have to keep those organs viable outside the body, fighting against rapid cellular collapse and tissue damage.
Right, time is always ticking.
And when we look at devastating neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, or Huntington's disease, what is the root cause?
I'm not sure.
Fundamentally, they're protein-holding diseases. They occur when vital proteins in the human brain lose their structural integrity, misfold, distort, and clump together, destroying the cellular machinery of the mind.
Oh, wow. I see where you're going with this. The misfolding proteins in a human brain. It's the exact same problem the fish faces under pressure.
It is the exact same biological crisis, the structural collapse of a protein. Medical researchers and biochemists are now looking deeply at marine osmolytes like TMAO.
Really?
Yes. If we can fully decode and understand how this tiny deep-sea fish uses a relatively simple chemical compound to physically force proteins to hold their shape and prevent misfolding under the most extreme physical stress on the planet, what if we could synthesize that mechanism?
What if we could use it?
Exactly. What if the key to preserving human hearts, lungs, and kidneys for transport across the globe, allowing them to survive outside a body for days instead of hours? Or what if the molecular key to preventing the catastrophic protein misfolding that causes Alzheimer's disease is currently swimming around in the pitch black 3 miles beneath the surface inside the cells of a tiny, scary-looking fish?
The monsters of the abyss might literally hold the medical miracles of tomorrow.
Precisely. When we look at them closely, they aren't monsters at all. They are vast, ancient biological libraries of solutions to problems we haven't even begun to fully understand.
And to think, it all starts with a little 6-inch fish with teeth so big it has to build holsters in its own skull just to close its mouth. What an absolute trip. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. The ocean is unimaginably vast, it is incredibly dark, and it is full of secrets just waiting to be discovered. Keep questioning the world around you, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time. Stay curious.